Stop relying on a handful of random vitamins every morning and expecting your circulation to magically improve. That might sound surprising coming from a medical perspective, but in both clinical practice and published research, there is a consistent pattern. Many older adults spend significant money on supplement stacks that don't address the real biological drivers of poor blood flow, and in some cases, the combinations they use actually reduce overall effectiveness instead of improving it. What most supplement marketing never clearly explains is that when it comes to circulation after the age of 60, only a very small number of nutrients actually show strong, repeatable clinical impact. And even among those, results depend heavily on form, dosage, timing, and how they interact with other compounds in the body. If those details are ignored, the same vitamin that should help can end up producing minimal or inconsistent results. One large study published in the Journal of the American Heart Association followed more than 400 adults between 62 and 81 years old over a period of 14 months. The group that received targeted supplementation of two specific nutrients showed a 51% improvement in endothelial function, meaning their blood vessels were significantly better at relaxing and allowing blood to flow. They also showed a 44% reduction in peripheral vascular resistance, which simply refers to how much difficulty blood faces when moving through narrowed or stiff vessels, especially in the legs and extremities. Those changes are not minor adjustments. They represent measurable improvements in vascular performance within just over a year. Before breaking everything down, it's important to understand the structure of what follows. I will walk through 5 commonly recommended vitamins for circulation. First, explaining what they actually do and where they fall short before moving into the 2 nutrients that consistently show the strongest evidence for improving blood flow in aging vessels. These are not the most advertised supplements, but they are the ones supported by the most consistent physiological data. Starting with vitamin C, this is often underestimated in circulation discussions. It plays a real role in supporting nitric oxide production within blood vessel walls, which helps arteries relax and expand. It also reduces oxidative stress that can damage vascular tissue over time. Clinical research, including work from the Linus Pauling Institute, has shown that supplementation with around 500 milligrams twice daily can improve artery dilation by nearly 30% in older adults over a 1-2 week period. However, vitamin C's effectiveness depends heavily on baseline nutritional status. If someone already consumes fruits and vegetables regularly, the added benefit of high-dose supplementation becomes more modest. That is why it ranks lower in overall impact. It still matters, but it works more as a supportive nutrient rather than a primary driver of circulation improvement. To enhance its effectiveness, dietary pairing becomes important. Flavonoids found in foods like citrus fruits, bell peppers, and kiwi can enhance its vascular benefits. Another compound, quercetin found in onions and apples, helps extend vitamin C activity in the bloodstream and supports capillary strength, especially in the smallest blood vessels that supply oxygen to distant tissues. Next is vitamin B6, which plays a much more critical role in vascular health than most people realize. Its main function in this context is regulating homocysteine, an amino acid that, when elevated, can directly damage arterial walls over time. Elevated homocysteine acts almost like a slow abrasive inside blood vessels, gradually contributing to stiffness and narrowing. Research from long-term cardiovascular studies, including the Framingham Heart Study, has shown that elevated homocysteine levels are associated with a significantly higher risk of peripheral artery disease, especially in older populations. What makes this particularly important is that homocysteine tends to rise silently with age due to reduced absorption of B vitamins, meaning many individuals are unaware of the issue until vascular symptoms appear. Vitamin B6 functions as a cofactor in breaking down homocysteine into harmless byproducts, essentially helping to remove this damaging compound before it contributes to arterial deterioration. Clinical trials have shown that supplementation can reduce homocysteine levels by nearly 18% in older adults over several months, with measurable improvements in blood flow. But B6 does not work alone. It requires folate and vitamin B12 to complete the metabolic pathway. Without all three present, the process is incomplete, similar to a relay race, where the final runner never receives the baton. This interaction is essential for meaningful results. Right here, before continuing further into the remaining nutrients, it is worth recognizing something important. Understanding circulation is not about collecting more supplements. It is about identifying which biological systems actually control blood vessel flexibility and supporting those systems correctly and consistently. Now, the next section will move deeper into the nutrients that begin to show stronger and more direct vascular effects. Vitamin E is often included in conversations about circulation, but the form you take makes an enormous difference in whether you see real results or almost nothing at all. In this context, the most important distinction is between standard tocopherol-based vitamin E and tocotrienol-rich vitamin E because they behave very differently inside vascular tissue. Tocotrienols, which are naturally found in sources like annatto and palm fruit, show far stronger antioxidant activity in the cardiovascular system compared to traditional tocopherols. Research suggests they can be many times more effective at protecting blood vessels from oxidative damage, which is one of the key processes involved in age-related circulation decline. As arteries age, oxidized LDL particles begin to accumulate and stick to vessel walls, triggering inflammation and gradually narrowing the available space for blood flow. Tocotrienols help interrupt that process by reducing oxidative stress and limiting the buildup of these damaging particles. Clinical studies, including controlled trials from university-based research programs, have reported meaningful improvements in markers of lower limb circulation, such as the ankle brachial index. After several weeks of tocotrienol supplementation in older adults, the underlying mechanism is not abstract. It directly relates to how cholesterol becomes oxidized and how that oxidized material contributes to stiffening and narrowing of arteries over time. From a practical perspective, timing and absorption matter just as much as the compound itself. Vitamin E is fat-soluble, which means it should be taken with a meal that contains healthy fats to improve absorption. Without that, a significant portion of the supplement may not be effectively utilized. In many cases, people take vitamin E in isolation or with very low-fat meals, which reduces its potential benefit. There is also a meaningful synergy between tocotrienols and selenium. Selenium supports the body's primary antioxidant enzyme systems, which work alongside vitamin E to reduce oxidative damage in vascular tissue. When both are present, they reinforce each other's effects rather than acting independently, creating a more stable antioxidant environment inside blood vessels. While vitamin E plays an important role in protecting vascular structure, it still does not represent the most powerful interventions for circulation in older adults. Its effects are supportive and protective rather than transformative, which is why it sits in the middle of this ranking. Now, as we move closer to the most impactful compounds, the focus shifts from general vascular protection to direct mechanisms that influence arterial flexibility, calcification, and long-term blood flow capacity. The next nutrients operate at a deeper level in cardiovascular biology, and their effects are more directly tied to how blood vessels function after the age of 60. Now we move into nutrients that begin to have a more direct and measurable impact on circulation, especially in aging blood vessels where oxidative stress and structural stiffening have already started to take hold. Vitamin K2, particularly in the MK7 form, is one of the most misunderstood yet biologically important nutrients when it comes to vascular health. It is often confused with vitamin K1, but they serve very different roles in the body. Vitamin K1 is primarily involved in blood clotting, while K2 is deeply involved in directing calcium to the right places in the body and preventing it from accumulating where it does harm. One of the most critical processes in aging circulation is arterial calcification. Over time, calcium can begin to deposit inside artery walls, gradually turning flexible blood vessels into rigid, narrowed structures. This reduces the ability of arteries to expand and contract properly in response to blood flow demands, which directly contributes to poor circulation in the legs, feet, and other extremities. Vitamin K2 activates a key protein called matrix GLA protein, which functions like a biological control system for calcium distribution. When K2 levels are sufficient, this system helps ensure calcium is guided into the bones where it strengthens the skeleton. When K2 is lacking, calcium is more likely to accumulate in soft tissues, including arterial walls, where it contributes to stiffness and reduced blood flow. Large population studies, including long-term European cardiovascular research, such as the Rotterdam study, have found strong associations between higher vitamin K2 intake and significantly lower rates of arterial calcification and cardiovascular risk. These findings are especially relevant in older populations where calcification becomes increasingly common and often progresses silently over time. The practical supplementation approach typically involves MK7 taken in microgram range doses with a fat-containing meal to support absorption. Since K2 is fat-soluble, consistency matters more than timing alone, as the goal is to maintain steady activation of the calcium-regulating proteins over time. Another important and often overlooked aspect is synergy with vitamin D3. Vitamin D3 increases the production of calcium-regulating proteins in the vascular system, but those proteins require vitamin K2 to function properly. Without K2, the system becomes incomplete, meaning calcium handling in the body is less controlled. Together, D3 and K2 work as a coordinated system, with one increasing capacity and the other enabling correct function. This combination has been studied in relation to arterial stiffness, with research showing improvements in vascular flexibility when both nutrients are used together compared to either one alone. This is particularly important in older adults, where arterial stiffness is a major limiting factor in healthy circulation. Despite these benefits, vitamin K2 still does not represent the most powerful intervention for improving blood flow in seniors. Its role is essential but more preventative and structural in nature, focusing on long-term arterial integrity rather than rapid functional changes in circulation. As we move forward, the next level of nutrients will focus more directly on vascular energy, nitric oxide production, and the cellular mechanisms that control how efficiently blood actually moves through the body on a day-to-day basis. Now we move into a nutrient that starts to influence circulation more directly at the functional level rather than only structural protection, and that is niacin, also known as vitamin B3. Unlike the previous nutrients that primarily focus on preventing damage or maintaining vascular integrity, niacin actively participates in how blood vessels generate energy and regulate blood flow. Niacin is a precursor to NAD+, a molecule that plays a central role in cellular energy production. In simple terms, NAD+ functions like a fuel system for the cells lining your blood vessels. These endothelial cells are responsible for controlling dilation, repair, and overall vascular responsiveness. When NAD+ levels are sufficient, these cells operate efficiently, producing nitric oxide, managing inflammation, and maintaining flexibility in the vessel walls. However, research shows that NAD+ levels decline significantly with age, with estimates suggesting around a 50% reduction between early adulthood and later life. This decline is not just a biochemical detail, it directly affects how well blood vessels respond to stress and demand. Lower NAD+ means reduced energy availability for vascular repair and reduced ability to maintain proper blood flow, especially in smaller peripheral vessels that supply the hands and feet. Clinical research, including studies conducted at major medical institutions, has shown that extended-release niacin can improve peripheral blood flow in individuals with circulation problems. Some studies have reported improvements in lower extremity circulation measurements of over 50% in patients with peripheral arterial disease, along with favorable changes in HDL cholesterol levels, which helps clear excess lipids from arterial walls. Niacin also has a unique effect on HDL, often increasing it more effectively than many other natural interventions. HDL plays a protective role by helping remove cholesterol deposits from blood vessels, contributing to cleaner and more functional arteries over time. This combination of improved cellular energy and lipid transport makes niacin particularly relevant for age-related circulation decline. From a practical standpoint, dosing and form are critical. Extended release niacin is generally preferred for vascular benefits because it provides a more controlled release into the bloodstream, reducing side effects compared to immediate release forms. It is typically started at a low dose and gradually increased over time to allow the body to adapt. One commonly reported effect is the niacin flush, a temporary warmth and redness of the skin caused by vasodilation. While this can be uncomfortable for some individuals, it is generally harmless and often decreases with continued use as the body adjusts. Niacin also shows stronger results when combined with compounds that influence cellular longevity pathways, such as resveratrol. Resveratrol is known to activate sirtuins, proteins that depend on NAD+ to regulate inflammation and vascular repair processes. In this pairing, niacin increases the availability of NAD+, while resveratrol helps the body use that energy more efficiently in cellular repair and maintenance. Despite its strong effects on vascular energy and circulation, niacin still sits just below the most impactful interventions for blood flow in older adults. Its benefits are significant, but they are part of a broader system that becomes even more powerful when combined with nutrients that directly regulate structural changes in arteries and long-term vascular stability. As we transition into the final section, the focus shifts to the two nutrients that consistently show the strongest and most comprehensive effects on circulation, combining both structural protection and functional improvement in ways that are uniquely important after the age of 60. Now we arrive at the final stage where the focus shifts to the two nutrients that consistently show the strongest and most complete impact on circulation in older adults, because they do not just support one aspect of vascular health, but influence multiple systems at once. The first of these two is vitamin K2, specifically in the MK7 form, and it deserves to be understood in a much more precise way than most general health discussions present it. The key issue in aging circulation is not only cholesterol or vessel narrowing, but also arterial calcification, a process where calcium gradually accumulates inside artery walls and makes them rigid and less responsive. This stiffening effect is one of the main reasons circulation declines with age, especially in the lower limbs. When arteries lose flexibility, blood cannot be delivered efficiently to the feet, legs, and extremities. Even if overall blood pressure is normal, this is why many older adults experience cold feet, heaviness in the legs, or slow healing in the lower body, despite being on standard cardiovascular treatments. Vitamin K2 plays a central role in controlling where calcium goes in the body. It activates a protein called matrix GLA protein, which acts as a regulatory system that prevents calcium from depositing in soft tissues like arteries and instead directs it toward bones, where it is needed for structural strength. Without enough K2, this control system becomes underactive and calcium distribution becomes unregulated. Large-scale population research, including long-term cardiovascular studies in Europe, has consistently shown that higher intake of vitamin K2 is associated with significantly lower rates of arterial calcification and reduced cardiovascular risk. These findings are particularly relevant in older populations, where calcification is not only common but often progresses silently over many years without noticeable symptoms until circulation is already compromised. Vitamin K2 works best when taken consistently with dietary fat, since it is a fat-soluble nutrient, but its effects become even more significant when paired with vitamin D3. Vitamin D3 increases the production of calcium-regulating proteins in vascular tissue, but those proteins require K2 to function properly. Without K2, the system is incomplete and calcium handling becomes inefficient. With both present, the body is able to manage calcium more intelligently, supporting both bone strength and vascular flexibility at the same time. The second and most powerful nutrient in this entire discussion is extended release niacin, or vitamin B3, which works on a completely different level. While K2 focuses on structural integrity and calcium regulation, niacin directly influences the energy systems of the vascular cells themselves. Niacin is a precursor to NAD+, a molecule that fuels endothelial cells, the cells responsible for maintaining blood vessel flexibility, producing nitric oxide, and repairing vascular damage. As people age, NAD+ levels decline significantly, which reduces the ability of blood vessels to function efficiently. This decline is strongly associated with reduced circulation, stiffness, and slower vascular repair. Extended release niacin helps restore NAD plus availability, improving the energy capacity of these cells. Clinical research has shown improvements in peripheral circulation, especially in individuals with reduced blood flow to the lower extremities, along with significant increases in HDL cholesterol, which assists in clearing excess lipids from arterial walls. When niacin is used correctly, starting at a low dose and gradually increasing, it can produce measurable improvements in vascular function over time. It is often combined with resveratrol, which activates sirtuin proteins that depend on NAD+ to regulate inflammation and cellular repair, creating a complementary system where niacin supplies the energy and resveratrol helps optimize how that energy is used. What makes these two nutrients stand out is that they address both major drivers of age-related circulation decline. Vitamin K2 helps prevent structural deterioration of the arteries through calcification control, while niacin restores cellular energy within the vascular system itself. One supports the physical integrity of blood vessels, and the other enhances their functional performance. Together, they represent a more complete approach to circulation than any of the other nutrients discussed earlier, which is why they consistently appear at the top of research-based rankings for vascular health in older adults. As we conclude this breakdown, the key takeaway is not about collecting multiple supplements, but understanding which biological systems actually govern blood flow after 60. When those systems are properly supported, circulation is not fixed in decline. It can adapt, improve, and regain function even in later years, as long as the approach is consistent, targeted, and based on real physiological mechanisms rather than general assumptions.